Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar brought to you by Seclore in partnership with Computer World. I hope everybody is joined in. I'm PC Matthew, Sales Manager for Computer World, and I look after the security business in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. I thank you for your participation in this webinar titled Conquer, Work from Home Security Challenges with Data-Centric Security. In the current business environment, when work from home is a new normal, employees connect to applications both on-prem and cloud using public internet or VPNs on their personal devices. It then becomes imperative for organizations to have visibility over its sensitive data and ensure that data remains protected and trackable. Seclore data-centric security platform helps organizations to overcome this last-mile security challenges of securing the sensitive documents, emails, and attachments on unmanaged networks, applications, and devices for their remote workforce. About Computer World. Computer World is a dynamic and forward-thinking company specialized in delivering solution and service innovation across key areas of digital transformation. We were founded in 1984 in Bahrain, and as an independent Saudi company, we commenced our operations in 2013. With Seclore and Computer World partnership, we are looking forward to delivering the many benefits of the Seclore data-centric security platform to our customers by leveraging our reach and sales expertise throughout this region of Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Uras Farouk, Director Sales Saudi and Bahrain at Seclore, and Ms. Noof Al Hadrami, Regional Sales Manager Saudi and Bahrain at Seclore as well. Now, let me go ahead and introduce you to the speaker of this webinar, Mr. Mohammed Janeen, Senior Pre-Sales Lead at Seclore. The duration of this webinar presentation is 45 minutes, followed by 10 minutes of Q&A session. And I kindly request all the participants to be on mute. During the session, if you have any questions, I request you to drop the questions in the chat box, and our experts will be answering them in the Q&A round towards the end of the session. For your information, we are recording this webinar. The recordings will be sent to you as soon as possible. For the ones who have just joined, I welcome you all. And with this note, I would like Mr. Janeen to start the webinar. Over to you, Janeen.
Thank you so much for this introduction, and I would like also to thank all the attendees that made time to attend this webinar. And we are working and we are hoping that this webinar will be as a value for you. And in today's webinar, I will be running you through a presentation, and then we will jump into a small live demonstration to see how exactly the solution will be able to help you in protecting your data, not just protecting your data, but protecting it, tracking it, and making you the owner and having the total control of this data, no matter where it goes and no matter where it travels. Now, before starting in the challenges and that the organization are facing right now, especially in this period of time, let's see what is Seclore and how is Seclore protecting your data. Now, Seclore, when we say that we are protecting data, we are adding 4 controls parameters on any protected document. And those controls parameters as they are as such. First of all, we give you the capability to identify or to restrict the data based on the user. So you can decide who should have access to your data, whether this is an internal user or this is an external user. So Seclore comes with many integrations. We can easily connect to an Active Directory repository, or even if you have use cases where you're sharing data externally, we have a user management repository for external user identity. So as a first layer of control, we are adding the layer of who should have access to the data, whether that user is an internal user or an external user. Now, the second layer of protection is deciding what can these users do with this data that you shared. So when you share a document with an internal user or even with an external party, you will be able to identify and restrict them to certain activities. Can they read the document? Can they edit the document? Can they print the file? Can they copy the content of the document? Would be there a watermark on the document? So all can they take a screenshot of the document? So all these controls, you will be able to restrict it when you decide what the user can perform on these files. The third control is deciding when the user will be able to access or to perform these activities. So if I give a user A read and edit permissions, I will be also able to restrict them when they can read and edit the file. So in here, I'll either give them a time frame, meaning they will be having access to this document within 2 days. So for 2 days, they have access. After 2 days, they will lose the access and they cannot open that file anymore. Or I will be able to specify an exact date and time. Let's say the 1st of August at 3 p.m., the document will get expired. Now we see this apparent in many use cases. In some use cases where you are sharing documents with vendors, with suppliers, with contractors, with auditors and consultants, where usually you rely on a non-disclosure agreement. So you made them sign the NDA and hope for the best that they will not leak your information after the project is over. So using this feature, we will be able to restrict the expiry of a document. So once the project is over in a specific period of time, then the documents, all the documents that you shared with a third party will get expired. The last layer of protection is from where the user will be able to access this data. So if I gave a user A read and edit permissions, I can define that maybe they should do this only from this internal network. So I can specify a range of IP addresses from where the user will be able to perform these activities. Also, if a user open a file on a specific device, I will be able to restrict them only to be able to open this file from the first device in use. So if user A open a file from a laptop, then they will not be able to open this file from any other workstation. And using these permissions, you will always be in control of your sensitive data. You can decide who should have access to the data, what they can do with this data, when they have these permissions, and from where they can have access to this data. And all these permissions are actually stored on our system, which is called the Seclore policy server. This will enable you to dynamically change the permissions or revoke the data. So typically, this is like a remote control for your sensitive data. So at the press of a button, you can change the permissions or revoke access to this data. Now, when we protect documents, we are adding these three layers of protection on any protected documents. And this sets us apart from the competition where we are adding multiple layers of protection and we have a unique way to manage the encryption keys that are used to encrypt and decrypt this data. Now, these three layers are the authentication layer. Before any user have access to a document, they need to authenticate and make sure to identify and we know their identity. Now, once you are successfully authenticated, we will be comparing what kind of authorization you have on this specific document. So these are the different permissions that I discussed earlier, what you can do with a document, when you can do these permissions, and from where you can do these activities. And the third layer of protection, which is the encryption. So every document that is protected by Seclore is actually encrypted. We are using AES 256-bit encryption, which is considered as a military-grade encryption to protect your data. So those are the three layers of protection that we are adding on documents when they are protected by Seclore Digital Rights Management. Now, you might think, how can I add these controls and these permissions to the document that I have within my systems, within my enterprise, or with my remote users? How can I add these permissions? So we are giving you multiple ways how you can protect your documents. Every organization is unique. Every organization will be different from the other organization when it comes to the systems that they are using, to the architectures that they are having, and to the environment that they build their solutions on. So that's why we are enabling our customers to have multiple ways of protection to match their own requirements. So as you can see from this slide, there's multiple way of protection. The first method, I'm starting from the right here, is protecting a file as the file is being created. So when a user is creating a file, they can easily just right click on that document and add the Seclore permissions to that document. We do have also an integration with the data classification. So that document will get classified, and based on its classification level, it will get automatically protected. The second method is when a user is sending an email. So while sending an email, whether it's from the Outlook or from the OA, the Outlook web application, you will be having a component to protect your attachments and emails that you are sending from Outlook and from OA. So the user will be able to apply certain controls on the attachment that they are sending via email. Apart from this, we do also integrate with the data classification tools. So when you classify an email, that email can be automatically protected by Secure Digital Rights Management. And also we do have an automated approach here where we have a component, it's called an email auto protector that sits on the gateway level. This component will monitor all the inbound and outbound email communications. And based on certain criteria, like the subject of the email, the classification of the email, the X header of the email, or even the domain recipients or the recipients of this email. So based on these criteria, we will be able to apply protection policies on the email automatically in the gateway level. Now, some of the organizations are using shared folders to share the documents internally and externally. Now, in these shared folders, we have a component called hot folder. This component will monitor these shared folders. And the minute that there is a new file placed in these folders, Seclore will automatically detect that there is a new file, and it will apply a protection policy on these documents. So, for example, if you have a procurement department or a sales department or even an HR department, that they are using a common folder to share or to store documents. So if I am in HR, for example, and I'm adding, or let's say I'm in finance, and I'm adding a financial report and I'm putting it in the financial folder, then that report will get automatically identified by Seclore, and a policy that will match to that specific department will be protecting that file. Now, for organizations that they have invested in DLP solutions, they can complement their DLP infrastructure by adding something called the discovery-based protection. So the DLP will have that capability of scanning networks, of scanning endpoints, and identifying data based on its content. Now, once the DLP discovers files based on its content, it can automatically call Seclore API in order to protect and encrypt that document with digital rights management. Of course, we are integrating with multiple vendors here, and you'll be having our pre-built connectors without deploying or without having the need to create something from scratch. And finally, we do also protect documents when they are downloaded from a system. And these systems could be like a SharePoint system. This system could be IBM FileNet systems, and these systems could be also a custom application system. Now, in these situations, we will be able to integrate with those systems. In case if SharePoint or IBM FileNet is used, we will be able to provide our customers with a pre-built connector that will be able to protect these documents upon download. And for custom applications, we are providing our customers with APIs and SDKs in order for them to integrate with these applications and protect those documents that are being extracted from these applications. Now, those are the different ways how we can implement a digital rights management on the document within an organization. Now, going back to the real issue that we are having right now, so we do have many organizations that are forced to work from home. And this raises many problems, which we will be discussing later on. But the main idea here is that we want to enable the enterprise to enable their employees to work and to be productive even if they are not within an organization. Of course, not just to be productive, but also to be secure. Now, organizations, they had an urgent requirement to enable employees to work from home. So the direct solution was to implement VPN. So we are opening a network communication between the end users that are working from home to the enterprise network. And the problem is those devices that the users are using are not really managed. In many some organizations they provided managed devices to their users, but the majority of organizations they cannot provide all the users with managed devices. So the problem here is that these users, first of all, they are connected to the Intel network with unmanaged devices, meaning those devices could be outdated. Those devices might not have an antivirus or an anti-malware. And plus, these are personal devices. So once the data is being transferred there, you don't have a way how to control this data or revoke their access on this data. Now, with that said, let's see some of the threats that organizations might face in these kinds of situations. First of all, let's take a look on the data that is stored on the file servers. Now, the data that is stored on the file servers, usually it is sensitive data, and you organization usually face a risk of making this data accessible to internal employees, and also in terms of users being working from home, since they have access to the network, to the internal network. If that machine got hacked and a malware infected that machine, it can easily infect the other files within your systems. Apart from that, the hacker will be able to extract those data from your file servers. Now, how can we make sure that the data which is stored on file servers are secured and the hackers will not be able to extract this data? Even if they extract this data will not be visible for them. And also, even for the internal users, making sure that the data that they took from the file servers are always protected, and automatically whatever data that they are extracting from the file servers are protected. At any point of time, we will be able to revoke their access. So that's exactly what the Seclore solution is. We are, as I said before, we do have a component that can monitor uh, the data that is stored on the file servers, and we can apply predefined policies and predefined security on these files. So these files can be automatically protected without really relying on the end user to protect this data. And of course, this data is having a persistent security, meaning no matter where you are sending this data is always protected, and it is protected with granular controls, stuff like enabling the users to read, to edit, to print, to have a watermark, and to disable them from taking screenshots. So the first threat that I'm discussing about here is the data that is stored on the file servers, and this is the Seclore solution, or the solution provided by Seclore, which is enabling organizations to automatically protect their data if it is stored on file servers. Now, the second threat, which is the data that is actually sent by email. Now, 90% of the data sharing within organization is done through a form of an email. Now, that email might be shared by a mobile device, might be shared by Outlook, might be shared by OA. It might be a system that is generating a report and sending it by email. So the majority of the data that is being shared is through an email system. And here, Seclore also is providing organization with the appropriate solution to protect their emails. So first of all, we can implement a way to enable our users to protect their emails and confidential data before sending it. But also, we don't really want to rely on the end users to protect their data. So we do have automated approach. So we have a component called the email auto protector. This will make sure to protect all the data that is either inbound and outbound communication. And we can define multiple rules in the system. So we can look to the subject of the email, we can look to the X header of the email, we can even look to the sender and recipient of these emails. And based on these criteria, we will be able to protect those emails on the gateway level without the interactions of the users. And the great thing about this is we do also integrate with the DLP solutions. So in case of the email DLP detects that there is a certain keywords or certain patterns within an email, it can forward this to our email protector. So before the email is reaching outside, then the email will get protected before reaching the external recipients. And of course, all the emails that are protected, we have multiple ways how we can have access to these documents and emails, whether the user has a desktop agent or agentlessly directly in the browser. And we will see this in the demonstration that I'll be performing later on. Now, we do have also many organizations that might be using cloud solutions to protect or to share or to collaborate with internal and external parties. Now, the problem here is that once you have uploaded confidential data, once it's being downloaded from the users, that's it. You will lose total control on this data. You don't know who are the users that, first of all, have access to this data, what they are doing with their data. Are they editing those files? Are they sharing those files? Are they copying those files? You don't have the full visibility on the data that is being shared with the cloud solutions. Now, in here, Seclore comes with multiple ways to help you protect this data that is shared via cloud. So if a document is protected and you upload it to the cloud, then that document is always protected. Doesn't matter if you're sending it with the cloud or not. Apart from that, Seclore does have integrations with solutions like Microsoft SharePoint Online. So we will be able to automatically protect the documents that are shared via some cloud solutions. Apart from that, we do also integrate with CASB solutions. So the CASB solution will be able to monitor the files that are being uploaded to the cloud and apply automatic protection to these files that are being uploaded to the cloud. And the great thing here is the users will be able to access these documents, whether having an agent or without having an agent in an agentless access way. And doing an integration with an application or with a cloud solution like SharePoint Online, for example, we have a unique concept. It's called policy federation. So the policy federation is that the capability of Seclore to identify the permissions that are already configured in the SharePoint Online and map these permissions to the digital rights management policies. For example, if today I have access to Microsoft SharePoint Online and I am downloading a file, maybe in the future my permissions will be revoked on SharePoint Online. That permissions revocation on SharePoint Online will automatically be mapped to the Secure digital rights management policies. So the file that I have downloaded earlier from SharePoint, I will not have access to it anymore after my permissions got revoked on the SharePoint. So you'll notice that there's a link between the SharePoint permissions and the Secure digital rights management permissions. So we are making sure to map and to federate the policies between the SharePoint Online and the files that are protected by Seclore. And also, we do have the dependency of the end user. Now, many organizations right now, since the user is outside their network, they might be using unmanaged devices. And even if they are using managed devices, many organizations, they don't have a way how to make sure that their data, that the user's data are being protected. So in here, within Seclore, we are making sure to provide you with a solution, making sure that this data, we will be having a mechanism to automatically protect this data. Whether when the user is creating this data, so we can force the protection of the data when that document is being created on the endpoint. We can automate that protection if that data is being sent by email. We can automate that protection when the document is even uploaded to the cloud. We can automate that protection with a DLP component, for example. So Seclore, its main focus here is that we will be able to enable our customers to use digital rights management in an effective way without spending a lot of effort doing awareness sessions to its users and without compromising on the data, on the security data, and without being dependent on the user to initiate this protection. And finally, one of the greatest threats I believe that we are facing here is that the situation that we are in, it requires the solutions to be implemented quickly and to be used efficiently without the need to spend a lot of time in the requirements or the hardware or even implementing the solution. So in this case, Seclore provides you with a solution that is both easy to use and uh, very flexible. So we can implement our solution on-prem, meaning organizations that they want to implement our solution on-premise, they can do that. For organizations that they want to be agile and fast to adopt digital rights management, we can provide them with an enterprise solution in the cloud. So we are providing them with a SaaS solution. They can just, have a subscription and they can directly just download an agent and they start working on the solution. Even if you are using our cloud solution, we can still have the controls to make sure that the documents are automatically protected without the need to rely on the end users. Also, for the protected documents, there is multiple ways how you can access protected documents. So even if you don't have the agent or you're sharing these documents with organizations that they might not have an agent, we will be able to enable those users to be able to work with these documents without installing an agent and open these files directly on the browser. And here also, you don't really need to bother yourself with updates and upgrades of the solutions as the agent has an automatic health check and it will get the updates directly from the server without initiating any kind of patch management on the endpoint systems. So as we've seen from all these threats, we have really analyzed the situation that we are running from, the need for users to work from home, and the gap, the security gap that is evolving and coming when we have these kinds of situations where we have users working from remote locations without having the necessary security measures to enable them to protect their data. Now, in Seclore, we made sure to be as flexible as possible. And we do have our data-centric security approach where we are providing this unified policy manager to make sure that we are not only providing digital rights management to organizations, but also integrating and making sure that this solution will work with the other enterprise ecosystem that an organization might have. For example, an organization might have classification tools. We do integrate with those. The organization might have DLPs. We do integrate with the DLP vendors. The organization might have analytic solutions like SIM solutions, or maybe custom applications, or identity system. So Seclore makes sure that we do have these connectors to enable organizations to embed or connect the digital rights management with the ecosystems and the environment that you will be having within your enterprise. Now, with that said, what I want to do right now, I want to run you through a quick demonstration. And of course, at any point of time, I think we are receiving your questions. If you have questions during the presentations, please keep your questions or type your questions in the chat box provided for you, and we will come to the questions in the end of the webinar. And also, you have the contact of our representative there in Saudi Arabia, Uras Farouk, which is the sales director, and Noof uh, Al Hadrami, which is the regional sales manager. You have their contact here. You can reach him at any point of time if you need a custom demonstration or a custom presentation for you. With that said, let's jump to the demonstration. So you will see the solution working in a live environment. So in here, I will be running you through multiple scenarios. The first scenario is how the data can be protected by the user, or how can the data be protected in an environment. So in here, I will be discussing multiple ways how the data can be protected, and then I will be showcasing how a user will be able to access this protected document with an agent or without an agent. So let's take a look, first of all, on how a document will be protected by a user. Let me just open up a machine here. So I have multiple virtual machines, and in every virtual machine, I'll show you how the data will be protected. So the first method of protection, as I said, if an organization is having a file server, and we want to automatically identify the files that are being stored in these file servers. So what can we do? Let's open up a file server here. As you can see, this is a shared folder. And let's say I am working in an HR department, or let's say I am in a sales department, right? All what the user needs to do is just drag and drop the file to this folder. So if the internal users, they're communicating or saving documents within a shared folder, all what they need to do is actually drag and drop a file in that collaboration folder. As you notice here, a lock icon had appeared on the file, meaning Seclore has automatically identified that there is a new file on the on this folder, and automatically applied security controls on that file. So let's add a couple of other files here. So I'm adding these an Excel sheet. I'm adding also a PDF file. You'll notice that Seclore provide also the compatibility with multiple file formats, whether it's an image, a Word document, an Excel sheet, a PowerPoint. We will be able to protect those documents for you. As you see from this example, all what I did is just drag and drop the file in this location, and our component that is monitoring the shared folders will be able to protect these documents. Now let's see the other way of protecting the data. So most of the organizations are, enabling their users to share documents via emails. So let's take a look on how can a document or how can an attachment be protected with an email. So once we compose an email, let's attach a document here. And if I open this attachment, we will see that this attachment is in a clear format. As you can see here, the document is it's not protected. I can do whatever I want with this document. So let's send this email to a couple of users. So first of all, I have a couple of users here. I'll be sending this email to, right? And here I'll say, yeah. So in here, I have composed my email. And what I'm going to show you right now is the protection from the Outlook itself. As you notice here, in the Outlook itself, you'll be having this Seclore component that will enable individual users to, it will enable your employees to protect their emails. Now, this could be automated and this could be a manual process. For the time being, I'm showing you the manual process, but the same process can be automated on the endpoint or it can be automated on the gateway level. So in here, I'm putting a read and edit controls on this attachment that I have added. And also, if I want to encrypt the body of the email, I can as well select protect body, and this will take care of protecting or encrypting the body of the email. So from here, all the user needs to do is to click send this email, and you will notice that the body of the email and the attachment will get encrypted and protected and sent forward. So this is the second way of protection that I want to show you, that we will be able to protect emails, whether it's a manual approach, the users enabling this, or an automated approach. We can automate this protection from the email, either from the Outlook itself or from the gateway level. Now, the third method of protection I want to show you is if you have a document on the desktop. So let me create an image file, for example. So here I have an image file. All what the user needs to do is to right click on the file, go to Seclore, and from here it will open the protection window. From here you can easily identify the users that you want to give the permissions for. For example, I'm typing Oraz. You'll notice that the solution will automatically sync up with the user with the Active Directory and pull up the user. So I can select Oraz and I can give him read, edit, print, or full control. I can also add additional users. So in here, maybe I want to protect this also for internal users. So for internal users, I am giving only read permission. So you'll notice here that when I protect documents, I will be able to add different controls, different users with different permissions on the same documents. Obviously, these are the basic permissions. If I open up the advanced permissions, you can see advanced permissions like restricting screenshots, restricting macros, allowing the user to work offline, or even disabling copying the data. I can set an expiry date, a specific date and time. For example, 1st of August, the document will get expired at 11:59 p.m. Or I can give a time frame. For example, if I give 5 here, then the user will be having 5 days to work on the document. And also in the location, I can specify a range of IP addresses, or I can specify this option, which is locking the file on the first device in use. So I can enable our employees to do this, or I can force them to use policies. So policies are permissions that are set by the administrator and will be distributed to the users, and we will be able to select the policies and protect a document directly from the policies. So in here, once you have added the permission that you need, you click on protect, and you will notice that the file is having now a lock button and the image now is protected. Now the final protection mechanism that I want to show you, which is an automated way, how we can force the users to classify a document and make sure that the classification is correct, and then we automatically protect these documents. So let's say I am creating a new Word document, call it webinar. Let's open up this file. So you'll notice that this is just an empty file that I have just created now. I'll be adding some data within this file. So let's add some random data here. Okay, so we do have some random data. Now let's try to save this document without doing anything. So you'll notice now, if I try to save the document, it will not allow me to save the document unless I select a classification label for this document. So I said, okay, let's try to classify this as public, right? and I'll try to save the data or the file. Now you notice I tried to classify this document as public, but it is not letting me classifying it as public. Why? Because we have configured certain keywords to scan the document and prevent the user to misclassify this document. For example, here in this demo, we have configured board of director as a keyword, and this keyword will not let you classify the document as public. You would need to classify it as confidential. So in here, we can pop up a message to the user that this is confidential data and they will not be able to classify as public. So the user will be forced to select the right classification for this document. And from here, you'll notice that a header appears on the document, maybe a watermark will appear, and a footer will appear on the file. This is totally customizable. You can customize it based on your own requirement. Now let's save this document. Now finally, the solution is enable us, letting us saving the document, and you will notice that the file in the desktop, it has an icon. This icon, it says C for classified, and it has a color, orange color, matching the classification label that we have. But what I want you to notice here is when I close the document, what will happen to this specific file? Now notice that it has a classification icon. Notice what will happen when I close the document. So this classification icon will automatically change to a lock icon, meaning we have integrated with the classification tool. We have Seclore was able to know that this document is classified as confidential, and we have applied the right policy or the map policy to this document. So in this case, the users will not be able to create documents unless that document is classified, and based on its classification, the document will get automatically protected. Now, these are the different ways how documents will be able, how we can add digital rights management to our documents. Now, if you remember earlier, I have sent an email with the protected documents. Let's take a look on how the users will be able to access these protected emails. So in here, I will jump quickly to another workstation. And in this workstation, I have a user which will be accessing that email. Now, what I want you to notice, I want you to notice that this user has an agent, and we will check another user that does not have an agent. So for a user that has an agent, this could be an internal user. It could be an external user that downloaded the agent. Obviously, our agents are free of cost, and the link to download the agent will be coming with any protected documents. Now, for an internal user or an external user that downloaded the agent, how the behavior will be for them. So let's open my Outlook and refresh my email. Okay, I received this email. Notice when I click on the email, since the body of the email is encrypted, it will get decrypted automatically because I have the agent installed, and we are using single sign-on to authenticate the user in the agent itself. So in here, you'll notice that the decryption of the email body was seamlessly done without any type of, any change in the behavior of the user. Now, what about the attachment? Now, if I double click on the attachment, you will notice that the attachment will be opened in the native application. In this case, since it's a Word document, it will open in Microsoft Word. And you will notice here that if I click on this button, it says that I have read and edit permissions on this document. Meaning if I try to print the file, I will not be able to print the file. It's telling me you're not authorized to print the file. Even if I try to copy the content, so if I take some content from here and I say copy, I go to anywhere to paste this content, let's say a notepad, and I paste this content, it will tell me that you are not authorized to copy this content. So there's no way for you to leak this information. And actually, even for the document, we can display a watermark. In this scenario, we have disabled the watermark in this virtual machine, but I'll show you the other virtual machine where we have enabled the watermark. So even if you don't want the user to take a screenshot, we can disable screenshot for them not to be able to take it from the document. So as you notice here, It's as easy as clicking and viewing the document. There's no changes in the behavior of a person that has an agent to open protected documents. Now, let's jump to a different user, which might be considered as an external user that never protected or, never installed an agent and never heard about Seclore. So this is a user. As you notice here, there's no Seclore agent installed. And this user is using Gmail, for example. So if I click on Chrome and I go to my Gmail account, I will see that I have received the email. Now, the email, the body of the email, if you remember, we have protected and we have encrypted the body of the email. So obviously the body of the email will not appear within Gmail. So what we have done, the body of the email got converted as an attachment. It's an email attachment. Let's download it. And also let's download the proposal or the Word document that we have sent across. Now let's try first of all to open the Word document. You'll notice that if I click on it, since I don't have the agent, the file will open in the browser. And in the browser, this can be your logo. So this page is customizable with your own branding. In the page itself, we are giving an option to the user. Do you want to view it in the browser, or do you want to download the Seclore application? So in here, let's say the user doesn't want to download anything. They just want to view the file quickly. So they say open in the browser. Now I need to authenticate here. So I can, since I am using Google app, or even if I'm using Microsoft authentication, I can authenticate with just one click. So I click on Google. You'll notice that it authenticates me automatically, and it's displaying, Seclore is displaying an online viewer and editor. So even if the user does not have Seclore installed, and even if the user does not have Microsoft Office installed, they will still be able to view the document in the browser and to edit the file in the browser itself. So in here, as you can see, the formatting is preserved. The document is visible with watermark. The name of the user and email of the user is displayed on the watermark. So even if you take a picture of the document, that picture will be having the name of that user itself. So if you see in the permissions, I have read and edit permissions. So read and edit permissions. So the print permissions will be disabled from the interface. And even if I try to copy the content, so if I try to take a piece of the content and copy it and try to paste it somewhere else, let's say in a notepad, you will notice that the solution will not let you do that. It will tell you not authorized to copy this content. So even if the user is opening the file in the browser, we can make sure that their capability or the protection for that file is also preserved in the online viewer and editor. What will happen to the body of the email? So if you remember, we have downloaded the body of the email. If you click on it, the same thing, it will ask you, do you want to open it in the browser? We say yes. And then the file will be loaded in a secure email viewer. And now you can read the body of the email. You'll notice that there's a watermark as well. And you can also reply directly from this interface. Right? And send it. So in here, even this reply will be an encrypted reply to make sure that not only your email is encrypted, but also the email that you will be receiving is encrypted. Now that is for an external user. As you have seen, it's as easy as opening the file in the browser and working on it without installing anything, without even having the need to have Microsoft Office applications. Now, what will happen if you send this email by mistake or you change your mind and you want to revoke the access? Now, again, in this, you can easily go to your email that you have sent. You can do this from Outlook, or you can do this from the management console. So if I go to my sent items, I can see that in the email itself, I have two buttons. I have a track option and I have a revoke option. If I click on the track option, I'll be able to see all the activities that was performed on my email. So I can see that Anna opened the document. I can see that Anna tried to print the document, and I can even see Linda. She opened the document and she opened the email as well. So in here, if I want to view these activities more in detail, I can view it in the management console. So if I click open in the browser, it will open the management console. And from here, I can click on the activity. I can see the local IP address. I can see the public IP address. I can see the computer name. I can see that the users try to open the file using the desktop client, and I can see the location of the file and the file itself. So all these logs or all the activities performed on your file, whether it's internally or externally, you will be having total visibility on it. Apart from that, it's not just having visibility, but it's also about having control on your data. So here I can click on revoke. Once I click on revoke, this window will appear showing me all the users that have access to this document. And of course, this is available for us because we have sent and protected the document via email. If I have protected the document in any other way, I can always go to the management console and I'll be having the same controls. So in here, I can see that the documents or email is accessible by these users. I can select an individual user or I can select all the users. And here, I can say revoke and the permissions will get automatically revoked to all these users. So let's take a look. If we go to the users that received the email, this user, and let's close this. Now you'll notice that this user, if they try to open the email again, first of all, they cannot even read the body of the email. So the email is not visible anymore. And the second part is if they try to open the attachment that is already in their mailbox. So I'll try to open the attachment. You will notice that Seclore identified this user does not have access anymore to the file and they will not have access to that document. And in this way, we can make sure that even if you share the file externally, you are still in total control of this document. And here, Seclore will provide you with an easy access to request access to the file. In here, it's as easy as saying, for example, please give me access. And Seclore will automatically identify the owner of this document and it will send them request access. So if I go to the owner of this document or email, you will notice that they will receive an email here. The email came from Anna. She's saying, please give me access, and she wants access to this specific document. I can just click on approve, and that external user will have access again on that file. So doing so, we can make sure that all our documents are properly secured. Not only secured, but also you'll be having total visibility on what's happening with your data. And apart from this, you'll also have total control on your data, whether this data is internally or externally utilized. Now, with that, I conclude the webinar for today, and I'll thank everyone, and we will be taking questions right now.
Thank you, Janine, for the presentation and the demo. So we shall start taking the questions now. We have the first question, which says, for read-write access from any environment or device, if the user is given read-write on office laptop, can they give only read access from personal laptop for the same document?
Okay, so if I understand the question here properly, if a user gives certain permissions on a document on an environment, let's say an internal environment, would those permissions also work on an external environment? So in here, the permissions that you apply on a document, it's always applied on that document. Doesn't matter where the user is. If the user is inside the network or outside the network, they will always have those restrictions that are applied on the document.
I hope that answers the question, and if it doesn't, then you can always connect with us for further information. The second question is policy federation, SharePoint permissions to download data. The downloaded data on local from cloud before revoking permissions, how can it be secured?
Yes. So the data that is leaving the the data that is leaving SharePoint can be automatically protected the minute it's being downloaded. So when the data is downloaded from the SharePoint environment, it will be downloaded in a protected format. This is done automatically. And this protected format, it's using encryption from or the digital rights management from Seclore. And Seclore, we have a connector that we are installing on the SharePoint. This connector enable us to identify and to map the permissions between the SharePoint and the downloaded documents. So if a permission is revoked on the SharePoint, this permissions will or this revocation will be mapped to Seclore, and Seclore will change the permissions for this document as being revoked, and the user will not be able to open this file anymore, even if the document is downloaded to the user. So this is done via an integration and via a connector between Seclore and the SharePoint server.
Okay, thank you, Janan. The next question is a universal question that we always hear. How is your solution different from Microsoft Rights Management? I think the
Yes.
answer to this would be very lengthy. So, Janan, if you could just
Yes,
talk
yes,
about
of
the
course, of course.
highlighting the showstoppers. Yeah.
So for the comparison, I will be able to have a new webinar just to discuss all the technicalities that is involved in here. But in a nutshell, when it comes to the technical capabilities of the solution, there's a gap between both solutions because Seclore is a vendor that is focusing only on digital rights management, and that automatically gives us the edge when it comes to technical capabilities of the solution. But if you want to dig deep inside this comparison, we're more than happy to have a call with you and take you point by point with the comparison between both solutions.
Thank you, Janan. The next question is kindly explain the policy locking the first device of use for the bitmap example you gave.
Yes, yes, great. So the locking the file on the device on the first use, the agent will be doing some kind of profiling for the system. So profiling to the system include the operating system, include the user ID on that specific system, the GUI ID. I believe there is an echo. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So the agent itself, it will be able to profile that the system which you are accessing the file from. So it will look into the operating system. It will look into the GUI ID. It will look into the signature of the file and the signature of the operating system and the MAC address. So there is a lot of components that will enable us to lock a file on a first device in use.
Thank you, Janan. The next question is your solution on cloud or on-premise?
Yes. So in here, Seclore does provide two kind of components. We can provide our solution as a cloud system, and we can provide our solution as an on-premise system. And the great thing here is that there's no difference between the cloud system and the on-premise system if you compare it with the other solutions. The other solutions, if you go to the on-prem system, you will lose 90% of the functionalities. In Seclore, the same functionalities that you have on the cloud are available for you on-premise.
Thank you, Janan. The next question is, can Seclore protect data inside a database, like a row or a column?
I see. Great question. So Seclore actually is protecting data, protecting the unstructured data. So the document and files that are residing on servers and workstations. Now, we will not be able to protect the columns and rows in a certain database. But in case, for example, if we take an example of SharePoint, SharePoint uses databases to store the documents. So in this case, if a document is protected and you upload it to SharePoint, or even if you extract it from SharePoint, then that document is always protected. Even for systems that you are generating reports, let's say you have an ERP system that is using confidential data that is stored in rows and columns to generate a report, then that report can be automatically protected before it's being sent by the ERP system. So the quick answer is no, we will not protect or we will not encrypt the row and column, but we will be able to add certain protection on the data that is generated from these rows and columns and the data or the files that are stored in the database.
Thank you, Janine. So we have two more questions. The next question is, does Seclore work on mobile devices, and do you integrate with MDM solutions?
Yes. So Seclore does provide you with an app. It's freely downloadable from the App Store or Google Play Store. So we are compatible with iOS and Android. And yes, we do integrate with MDM solutions. MDM solutions like, for example, Mobile Iron or AirWatch. So we do integrate with MDM solution to provide you with secure viewing for the protected documents.
Thank you, Janine. And the last question is, what kind of file formats do you support?
Okay, great question. So out of the bat, we support all the file formats. So we just recently released something called a universal protection, which will allow us to support all the file formats when it comes to the basic protection, which is an encryption and deciding who should have access, when and where. But also we provide advanced protection for around 60 plus file formats like Word, PDF, images, text files. So these kinds of file formats, we can provide advanced protection to decide what you can do with this document. But initially, for all the other file formats, we can still provide something called universal protection, which will encrypt the document or encrypt that file. It will add a control who should have access, when they should have access, and from where they should have access.
Thank you, Janine. Do we have any other questions? If anybody else wants to ask any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to answer them. And I think this brings us to the end of the session. I would like to thank all our attendees for taking time out from their busy schedules to be part of this. I hope this has been informative and educative, and we look forward to hearing from you. Should you have any queries, we'd be more than happy to address them. Janine, thank you so much for your presentation, and I think this would bring us to the end of the session. Thank you all.